But in that moment, I took the opportunity, dude. And I'm standing there literally next to my dad.
This is my boy.
In Tamil, I said, hey, like, my Tamil's not great. I understand everything, but I may be a little slow to respond.
All right.
Is what I said.
You need to say that in Tamil.
Oh,
right now
dude.
Me, why not?
On camera?
Why not,
okay, this is what I said. I said... Welcome back to episode 11 of the Rome's Room podcast, where we discuss education, careers, and show you how ordinary people can do extraordinary things. As always, I'm your host, Jerome, and welcome to my room. As always, a quick reminder that you can catch this podcast on Apple, Spotify, CastBox, and on youtube.com/JeromeVaz. If you want to watch the video version, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Back again by popular demand, Mr. Daniel Enciso. Welcome back again.
Thank you, bro.
Thanks for coming back again, man.
Yeah, I'm here.
I think people very much enjoyed the philosophical conversation, so maybe we can continue those today.
We can get into how that even became to be, in my life.
But before we get into that, can we please talk about what happened at lunch today? I want to talk about the food contamination. That's what I want to talk about. Do you remember this? So we went to
name the place.
We're not gonna name the place because I don't want to put anyone. I don't want to put anyone on blast. But we went to lunch today, and it was a ramen place. I'll say that it was a ramen place, and they had multiple different kinds of broth that you could have.
They're gonna geolocate.
No. There surely there's
somebody's gonna know my financial transactions.
Oh my God, no. We're good. But they had multiple different broths.
Yeah.
A couple that specifically said warning, peanut allergen or nut allergen, something along those lines. We were sitting at the bar top, ordered our ramen. We were just waiting.
Yeah.
Watching the cooks kind of do their thing.
Yeah.
And I actively watched this man take a whisk, put the whisk in a bowl with one broth, mix it up, immediately put it into the next broth, different broth, mix it up, put it into the third, and mix it up. And I was like, there's 3 different kinds of broth here. I know for a fact one of them is the peanut allergen one, and he's just mixing it.
I was unfazed by it, but I know
well, I mean, okay, I'm also not allergic to anything. You're not allergic to anything. But
we know people. We know people who are allergic to things.
I feel like it's an issue. And this wasn't just like some hole in the wall nonsense place. This was a nice establishment.
Yeah, for sure. My answer was if somebody who had an allergen would have said something.
Yeah.
Then they would tell the kitchen.
True.
But
I mean,
that doesn't excuse it. That doesn't excuse it.
But that's my point is if they're going to call out that it is a warning because they have an allergen potentially.
Yeah.
Why just not care? You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, dude. I also don't know what kitchens do when they ask you any food allergies.
Bro, they
you know
have to.
Saying?
They
no.
have to.
What I'm trying to say is I don't know what they actually do. I've never been behind the scenes. You're making me think of a movie that I saw about a chef in London.
Yeah.
And this guy, this is a spoiler alert, so you can, I don't know, fast forward. It's going to be so long. It's about a chef in a kitchen.
Okay.
And he's got...
Ratatouille.
Nah, this is real life. And dude, this dude ends up I hate giving movie spoilers.
How old is this movie? This is an old movie.
I don't even know. I don't even know. It's
Go
not
for
that
it.
old.
Go for it.
Basically, the guy ODs, bro, because this guy is so stressed out about being a chef. Because the owners, he's also competing with other chefs, so there's ego. The kitchen staff, and then the host. Have you ever seen a restaurant before they open up? There's the kitchen staff.
Yeah.
And then there's the hosting staff.
Yes.
And then there's a manager for all of that.
Right.
Talking to both, making sure everybody's on the same page. And the hosting, the waiters, waitresses, and all that have to tell the kitchen the right orders and all that stuff. And then in the kitchen you need dishwashing. Dude, it's madness. It's madness. What I'm trying to say is this. I wonder. You tell somebody there's allergens.
Yeah.
How do they actually? Because dude, in this movie, they give somebody an allergic reaction because
It's a
somebody
problem,
messed
bro.
up the order for the table.
It's a problem.
For the table, and I'm pretty sure that person was hospitalized, which was then gonna affect.
Now you're going into litigation, bro.
No, I'm wondering if this is why the guy was so stressed out, and then he took that final
Yeah.
dose of coke, and then he
OD'd. Yeah,
and then he OD'd outside of the restaurant, bro.
Wow.
Which, in the irony of life,
To specify, this is a movie. This
is a movie.
Okay.
But in
I'm sure it's based off of real life.
where in
Or could
how
happen.
crazy this life, I wouldn't put it past it. Happen.
No, I agree. So
yeah.
I similar to you. I don't know if I should get into this. I'm gonna do it anyway. This is my podcast. I don't care.
Where's your drink, by the way?
Oh, that's a great question. All right, jump cut right here. I'm back.
We are back. Dude, yeah,
Cheers.
yeah. Cheers.
Salud.
Sí. Salud, mi amigo.
So while I have never worked in a proper, actually that's not true.
Oh shit.
While I
Wait.
have
You're
not,
a chef.
while I have not
It's a
been
man
hired
man
and
of many talents.
employed as a restaurant worker, I how do I say this? You're gonna know what I'm saying, but I don't know that the audience knows what I'm saying, and also there are certain people that are potentially in the audience that may or may not know what I'm saying. I used to work in a kitchen
I don't even know.
on occasion, not as a job, but as a favor.
I do not recollect. Continue. Just keep digging, bro. Keep digging yourself in this
okay,
hole,
I'm editor, which is me. Bleep this out.
Oh shit.
So
Well,
we have to bleep it. We have to bleep it. We have to bleep it.
Yeah, but oh no, this is going in. This is okay.
No, it's nothing bad. I'm just saying that it was stuff like that we would need to be
conscious of
because there could potentially be like food contamination and stuff. People would come in, they would only want like vegetarian options or gluten-free options or whatever, and you'd have to be conscious about stuff like that.
Right.
So anyway, I think that experience has taught me to be aware of things like this, and especially for an establishment that seemed as upscale as the one that we went to, it was a little concerning.
Yeah.
It was,
and I could see that you had the attention to detail. Always philosophical. So like just to show like the privilege, like dude, like because I don't have food allergies. I'm like, bro, just bring me my food.
Yeah.
Like that's. Again, whether it's like through the scholarship program, through work, through travel, bro, learning empathy, really thinking about the human experience. The human experience depends on the person.
Yeah.
And then you just see things differently.
It's
like lenses. I've talked about this before with people who know me really well. It's just like if you've had glasses, if you've had contacts, if you've had LASIK, if you have perfect vision your entire life, dude. The lenses which you see the world in, bro, matter so much. Because reality is always the same. Like, like people with glasses, like, they take off glasses, it's blurry for them. But as the picturesque sunset or the intricate details of, like, a painting, it remains the same. Also, same restaurant, bro. We're sitting there. Your boy?
Yeah, different lenses.
Blind man.
Exactly. Exactly. No, it's a good way to put it.
Man.
It's a good way to put it.
I'll write a theory. Yeah, so like I have a lenses theory. It affects everything. I'll write about it. You could write about it if you want, but
wait, we should get into that. We should.
Well, I mean,
okay. Wait.
So like I haven't, it's
Let me preface this episode.
I don't even have to get into this.
This episode's going to be slightly different than most episodes of this podcast because by this point, 3 weeks in a row, you guys are very acquainted with Daniel. You guys know his story now. And hopefully from the last 2 episodes, you're able to very clearly see that he and I very much enjoy our philosophical conversations.
Yeah.
And I think this episode's going to be heavily driven by kind of just like ideologies, philosophical topics, and just thoughts on life, not necessarily focused on academics or, career. Because we did that already.
Yeah, and to recap that, like the practicality of it all is it's a practical approach. Get educated or start your company, figure out your trade,
Yep.
make connections, like all of that stuff is essential. And it's not like, it's not easy, but it's not that hard. Show up.
Right.
Talk to
And
people.
maybe some of these things are things that you might be struggling with. Not you, Daniel. The listener might be struggling with, or thoughts that you have had in the past that might resonate. And it's all relevant in the sense of it is what we are thinking about when we're becoming young adults and
Yes,
kind
exactly.
of learning how to live life.
Yeah, and this whole idea of being self-sufficient and,
Yes,
living
exactly.
in a community. So this is gonna be a great episode.
So as you teased, what is your lenses theory?
Well, so to give people just the full context, it's not so much a theory of like I developed this profound, essay and paper, but via experience, I've just this like analogy for people to understand how the world is perceived. And so because of the time, so a lot of theories, poets, writers, directors can use the tools of their time.
Okay.
The tools of our time have afforded some of us the gift of vision, like literally for our eyes. And so what I mean by that is like I have gone through different stages in life where I had perfect vision. I was a kid, then needed glasses, then ended up using contacts so I could see, specifically in sports, and then eventually I got LASIK in my mid-20s. And so this one time I was explaining this, I was trying to get someone to understand I was just trying to share my perspective on like what is reality, and things. I get things are very subjective, dude. I was in these English classes and we started talking about existentialism.
In college?
No, in high school.
Oh, whoa.
In high school, because of the books that we were reading, and we're reading Emerson and Thoreau and Albert Camus and all this stuff. And so then, man, I was just, dude, I get, so like life is subjective. There are vantage points. There's a movie called Vantage Points, all this stuff. And I get like we perceive things independently, but things have to exist outside independent analysis. Hence, these lenses isn't like I don't think it's a transformative idea, more of like an applicable analogy to our time. Meaning people who know, glasses have been around, contacts are fairly new in the last 50 years or whatever, and then LASIK is probably like 30 or 20, I don't know, maybe less.
Sure.
And so I use that as almost like leverage in the argument to say that reality persists. What is true
will always be true. Well,
what is actually true will always be true. The difficulty thing is like we hone in onto what our lenses tell us is true. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Our lenses tell us that thing looks blurry. Or this is, but dude, I mean, in each of those stages, man, I had contacts, prescriptions change. The LASIK is also, dude, it's so different. Your eye's not getting dry. You know what I'm saying? Like dry eye seeing through contacts is a different thing. And what I'm trying to say is like, dude, that helps me like be quiet sometimes. Like in an argument, dude, when I'm like not trying to prove my point, and I'm like, damn, dude, what kind of lenses do I got on right now? You know what I'm saying? And like we've known this, telescopes, microscopes, but those are like, they show us a world that our eye, it doesn't look as, but like the glasses and the contacts and the LASIK are just enough to be like enough, they still show us this level of the world where we're like, man, like just a little bit of a change in the focus point on like the retina. And I just use it as an analogy. It's like, man, change the language, bro. It's like what we talked about, like speak English, Tamil, like Japanese, Spanish, Portuguese, like, dude.
Let's get rid of the metaphor for a second of lenses and put it into like actual practice of what you're saying is like when you're talking to someone, when you're having a relationship with someone, and I don't mean like romantic, just any type of relationship with someone.
An interaction for sure.
And you're having a not necessarily disagreement, but a misunderstanding between two people,
Yeah.
can you change your perception a little bit?
Yeah.
Can you think from a different lens to understand what that person's saying?
For sure.
Because that's kind of what
That's the question.
that's kind of what experience in life is, right? Is like
Yeah.
trying to understand from these different perspectives. Going back a couple weeks of talking about, this Haslam Scholars Program and everything. That's what we're talking about. Is like being able to perceive life from all these different lenses.
Yes. And then the thing is, this is where it gets interesting and where I build upon not just the theory, but like the practicality of it. It's like, let's say I have the lens of a Colombian who grew up in the States, but I can choose to have that. Do you see what I'm saying? Like I have that data because that's been my experience, but I can also, what I'm trying to say is like I can choose to embody that, or I can just be like, no, I'm just from Florida. Well, like what I'm trying to say is like
The influences will always be there, though.
No, yeah, no, I'm not saying you. What I'm trying to say is like, if it's a useful tool, allow it to enter the space, right? But if it's not, then maybe reconsider it. Give it some time.
It's like when
why do I need to identify with those things?
Yeah, it's like when you're at the eye doctor and they're like, which lens is better, 5 or 6, and then they freaking add another one or they take it off.
Yeah.
In a certain in a certain instance in your life, in a certain moment in time, maybe it makes sense to remove that one lens and look at it from a different perspective, and in a different experience, like add it back.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. But like again, what then I'm saying is like you don't want to have non-corrected vision. You just want to use the lens for the right, like if you need to look at something microscopically, then you use that one.
Yeah. Dude, I think
if you need it, like this is the thing too. It's like I can view things as an American, like that is a factual thing. Like I can view things as a Colombian. I can view things as a male, as a 27-year-old. I can view these are all as an older brother, as a son. Again, these are perspectives. Lenses is like this appropriation that I've done of the word or whatever.
Right.
But it's a useful thing because like it's something that we can all relate to. And I think that's like when you figure out common language, we talked about this before, common language, then all can relate. Not because I'm convincing them of my own idea, but because in their own experience, in their own, these multitude of identities that people have, they're like, oh shit, he's right. Because sometimes I look at things like this, and sometimes I look at things like that. And it's like, it's not I'm right, because I didn't make this up, dude. I'm a person in this period of time. Again, if there's any validity to what I'm saying, it exists outside of my being.
Right.
I think out of this time.
I think this metaphor that we've created here is probably going over a lot of people's heads, but
maybe not.
Maybe not.
If you use glasses, you know what it's like to see clear, bro.
That's true. So one
drunk goggles, bro.
That's true. One thing that we didn't get to talk about last week, that I'd love to talk about, is the fact that we're both immigrants, which on the topic of lenses means that we see the world from a slightly different lens,
for sure,
or can see the world from a slightly different.
It's
lens.
Very specific kind of immigrants too.
Yes. Yes. And so I kind of want to explore this topic of like, how has being an immigrant in this country that moved here as a young age, not knowing the language, same as me, a lot of times people joke about like, oh, Jerome, like your parents have an accent. Some people actually tell me that my sister has an accent, but people tell me that I don't have an accent. Why is that?
We're American, baby.
I don't even say that. I say it's because a bunch of old white ladies taught me how to speak English.
Sheesh, bro.
Which is true. Point being,
I had some younger teachers, but like, it's not just like.
Oh yeah. I'm talking specifically about the ones that taught me how to speak English in my like ESL class, whatever.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't do ESL.
You didn't do ESL,
bro?
How'd you learn English?
Out in the field, bro.
I guess you were in kindergarten, weren't you? Out in the field.
Yeah, bro.
What are you?
Field, bro. Like
you're just growing the crops.
No, not that field, bro. I'm talking about like like
in these streets.
No,
in these streets.
Like, in the streets, in the war zone, whatever, bro. Out in the field.
As a 4-year-old, I just imagine you standing on the sidewalk like slinging dope.
Bro, the thing is, like, I got home from like I started learning English, bro. And I started absorbing that, and I was just like, I was so proud.
Yeah.
And then guess who started copying me? My brother, bro. My
Good.
brother. No, it was good, but then I got jelly, bro. I got jealous. But my brother's always been, and there's a great book. It's called Wanting: The Power of Mimetic Desire in Everyday Life. I highly recommend you read it. It's a game changer. It helps you understand the power of imitation, which is essential to assimilation.
Yes.
It's essential to assimilation.
Yes.
And people think, like, why do you need to assimilate? Bro, you're going into another place. Like the same thing. It's like, you don't want people in Colombia learning
This is interesting. This
English.
is interesting.
But then it gets complicated because, like, I also go to Colombia and there's indigenous groups and, like, there's all this stuff. Like, we can get into it. Like, there's too many points to be made in a single podcast. But what I'm saying is that we are assimilating into the United States of America. You don't have to lose anything, but you do need to learn.
No, I like
a
this.
few things.
I like this
right?
because
right, like
yeah, I like this this path we're going down because oftentimes, especially now, I think the slippery slope is people assume that assimilation is a bad thing. People assume that if you don't have some sort of individuality, some sort of individualism, especially as an immigrant, hold on to your culture, hold on to your heritage, then they think that that's a bad thing, that assimilation is bad. You shouldn't assimilate. You should be yourself, right? And that is a certain perspective. And in certain instances, that makes sense. I don't think assimilation is a bad thing. I don't think assimilation means you become something you're not.
There's probably like a textbook dictionary term, and then people think it implies like a loss of self or of.
But it shouldn't be that.
Exactly.
It shouldn't
be
that.
No, I totally. And I want to empower people. Exactly, because I do think it's confused because it's another facet of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's another part of you, and I think that's. I heavily focus on that, dude.
Yeah.
One of the things, like, I'll share here because it might be interesting to some people. Like, I really focused on speaking English. I don't like doing accents when I speak English because I like focused on like.
Should I try a Colombian accent right now?
Dude, I mean, in Spanish you can try it.
I'm not gonna do that.
You know, you can a Colombian speaking English, right? I'd be like, what the man? But that to me, and also like when I was trying to learn like. When I was learning Spanish, I'd try to do that, but even like I'll go back to Colombia and I'll have hints of different Spanish-speaking countries. Right. It is what it is, bro. Like, I'm not an outsider there. I'm like legally I'm not, and legally I'm not here. But like a gaijin, a foreigner or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But like
this throwing Japanese.
Oh yeah,
in there.
I had to, bro. Like a few words that I know.
Okay.
It's like,
I like it.
I'm laughing. I think. Knowing that you can grow all of that, dude. Like, I was nervous in my younger teen years of losing the Spanish side, bro. I listened to so much music, listened to stuff on the radio, but I also watched a lot of movies.
Yep.
And dude, I was like, dude, I'm not losing the Spanish, bro, because I got so deeply embedded, so into it. Like, but again. It was also like in our home, like we spoke Spanish, and like nobody was saying don't speak Spanish. Everybody was like saying speak Spanish at home. Yeah. Speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And but I know that if I, again, and it's young, and I didn't have a perfect plan, but if you don't personally take upon yourself, if you don't prioritize it, and it's okay if you don't, but then there are consequences, and that was a personal experience. I don't know if like I'd be curious to hear if like you did anything to. I don't know, develop that other part of yourself, bro? Like,
what's hilarious is I actually did quite the opposite.
You try to erase or just avoid, or what do you mean by opposite?
Yeah.
Erase, avoid.
So I'll start by saying I think assimilation is really important from the sense of being accepted by your surrounding. And I'm not saying you need to, you don't need to present yourself in a way where
you're not genuinely
begging for acceptance or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying.
You're the authentic version of yourself.
Yes.
In that language.
Exactly.
In that language.
Because I think what's important
or
is
that
like
culture.
When my family moved to Japan, right? 1998.
Which is also another version of it. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like, it's not just like, oh, you come to America.
Yes, 1998. I'm 2 years old. My sister's 3 years older than me, 5. My mom at the time was probably, let me do some quick math here, 24. My dad would have been 30, 31. So like we're a relatively young family.
Yeah.
And we go to Japan. We are in a town where no one speaks English. No one speaks Tamil, our Indian like language. So what are we going to do? Are we, one, going to say, no, we're not going to assimilate at all. We're going to keep our individuality. We're going to keep speaking Tamil. We're going to keep doing everything by ourselves. And then what? You're depressed as a family. You hate it, everything about the country that you're in. You are not able to make friends, are not able to, do anything until what? Until you have so much pressure and, depression in you that you quit, you give up, you leave,
or struggle.
Or struggle.
Yeah, struggle, depression
Or
is a part of that, but like struggle, it's just stress and
Or
strife.
do you say, okay, let me try to figure out what this culture is about?
And what I'm in within that space.
Right.
Without losing yourself.
That means learn Japanese, right? That means for me and my sister as kids, go to school. Learn what Japanese kids are doing at school. Eat the Japanese food. Really fully be immersed in that culture.
Totally.
We're watching anime on Saturday, Sundays.
Yeah.
My mom is going to Japanese classes. She started working at a grocery store, literally not because she needed to work, but because she wanted to learn the language. She wanted to interact with customers and learn the language.
Hi.
Exactly. Hi. And so from that perspective, assimilation is not bad. To go back to your question, though, what ended up happening was when we moved to the U.S., this is 2002 now, fast forward. We lived in Japan for 4 years.
Brazil won the World Cup in 2002.
Where was it hosted?
Japan, baby, and South Korea.
It's
crazy how this stuff's connected, people. I wish I could make it up. I wish I could tell you that I connect things.
I cried that year, bro.
But we are instruments of the flow of life, man.
I cried that year watching the World Cup because because it was the first time ever in history that it was hosted in Japan, and my argument was they should have let Japan win.
Bro, at that point you had bought into being Japanese, which is phenomenal.
Yeah,
which is phenomenal.
I mean, I had lived. I was 6 years old at the time.
A true patriot.
I had lived in Japan double the time that I'd lived in India. I thought I was Japanese. I spoke only in Japanese.
And the thing is, like, listening to you right now, like, we embody Americans so well right now that people, like, if you would just go on for a few sentences in Japanese, people would realize, like, it's not a different Jerome, but it's what people would call the Japanese Jerome.
Yes.
But if we just left it at a high level, that's just Jerome within that context.
Yeah, and
you see what I'm saying? Which is beautiful. Like, it's just insane. Like, I will never. Like, I'm not gonna like gain that fluency. It would take me a while. To know you like that. It's like, you know what I'm saying?
A good way to put it is, growing up here in the U.S., I still embodied a lot of those like Japanese cultural things. I think a good example of it is like anime, for example. Growing up here for years, I watched anime every single day or every single Saturday or whatever, And back then, it wasn't cool to watch anime. Back then, those were like the nerds. Those were the kids that were getting made fun of and like whatever, right? Now it's like very mainstream. Now it's like in right now, right? But there was like several years there that I like
watching.
Yeah, there were several years there that I just stopped watching because I was like, oh, people are making fun of me for this shit.
No, that's not why I stopped watching. I had a nightmare. My mom told me to stop watching this stuff. I like got like in the nightmare it was Dragon Ball Z, and like when they like go Super Saiyan and like there's this big ass explosion, and there's like this power thing or whatever.
Kamehameha, bro.
Kamehameha. Yeah, and I was I died in that dream because like somebody got me. Somebody got me. I wake up screaming.
And your mom was like, "That's it.
Yeah.
No more. No more." But that's my point.
I watched anime for years because like.
That's my point though. Is like it became a part of me. And it was normal to me. Another good example is like, those formative young years. I started first grade here in the U.S., 6 years old. My sister, on the other hand, started first grade in Japan as a 6-year-old.
More formative.
First through third grade, she did in Japan.
Well, that's when,
And so I say that to say like, I always describe myself nowadays, as you mentioned, like American. Whenever I think, my subconscious is in English. And I think in English and then I translate it to these other languages.
Oh.
Um, Whereas, or for example, if someone speaks to me in Japanese or speaks to me in Tamil, like I translate it subconsciously to English to then process in my brain in English, you know? Whereas my sister, and I don't know if she would describe herself this way, I have always described her this way to other people.
We need to know what you describe yourself
Yeah,
as.
maybe I should ask her. Jenny, let me know what you think. But I have always described her as, because those formative years were had in Japan, she thinks in Japanese and then translates it to English. You know, she
Could be.
thinks in her subconscious in
Could be.
Japanese.
I'd be very curious to get her answer.
And,
for that.
you know, because of that, again, these are my words, not hers, but because of that, you know, we went to a Japanese school when
Is
we
that
lived
called
here.
hearsay or something? Or
Sure, yeah, hearsay. I'm not a lawyer.
I don't know.
But because of that, you know, when we lived in the U.S. or, you know, when we were younger, 1st through 9th grade for me, I went to this Japanese school. My sister, 1st through 12th. Then she became a teacher at that Japanese school. She moved to Japan. Her fiance is now Japanese. She lives in Japan with her fiance. And, you know, like.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So all those things, it's like those
sense.
formative years. Now, okay, we got a little off topic, but going back to your original question,
yeah, bro, avoiding or erasing or what?
when we first moved to the U.S., right?
I want to know.
My sister and I both didn't speak English at all. My parents, they grew up speaking English in India because they both went to like English medium schools, meaning you had to speak English in school. So they learned English, right?
Me too, by the way. I had to learn English in school.
Okay. Anyway, my sister and I, we did not know English at all. I can sum up the. I can sum up. That was good. That was a good joke.
That was good.
I can sum up the 2 words that I knew in English when we first moved here, and it was hello and McDonald's.
Wow.
Damn.
Damn.
And those were the only 2 words that I knew, man. And it took time to learn English. Now, my parents, I mentioned this Japanese school. They put us in this Japanese school to help us make friends. We were having a hard time making friends in regular school because, you know, we didn't speak the language, but we were fluent in Japanese. And so we went to this Japanese school on Saturdays. We made friends there. Obviously, it was like a little awkward because, you know, we're these 2 brown kids in a school full of Japanese kids.
And that's wild.
But we were able to make friends easily. And that helped. Now, what that hindered was our English learning. And so, again, my parents got creative with it. They were trying to help us learn English faster.
Mm-hmm.
And their solution, which I still agree with, is they stopped speaking to us in Japanese and in Tamil at home completely.
Whoa.
They would only speak to us in English.
Wow.
And speaking of assimilation, my sister and I, we were forced into learning English as quickly as possible, right?
Yeah.
Because we had to speak English at school. We come home, we have to speak English at home. And so we're forced into learning English, and it worked fantastic.
Yeah, of course.
We learned English so
Wow,
quickly.
this is fascinating.
For me, I learned in just 2 years. My sister took her 3, and of course she's older than me, so she had a little bit more to learn to like get caught up with her grade level.
That makes sense.
And so she took 1 year longer than me, whatever. But we learned English. Now, here's where we get to your question. Japanese, because we were going to Japanese school, we always kept the fluency there. We were doing homework in Japanese, interacting with people in Japanese all the time, always kept that. Tamil, on the other hand, was a different story, because what would happen is my sister and I now started speaking Tamil with like an accent, a little bit of like an American accent, which I'm sure you have understood this in your childhood probably.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
what came with that for us was a lot of embarrassment. I'm not
from like the back, yeah.
Not necessarily from my parents, but just from people.
No, from the community, like
Yes.
from like
Yes.
either back home,
Back
or like
home,
people
or like people in
that
in the Indian community in Knoxville,
I'm
or
gonna just
whatever.
say this, kind of it hurts.
It hurts.
It hurts a little bit,
And
because then you realize one thing that your parents. Just to pause right here, because I do want to say, in the pursuit of more opportunities, a better life, they never or perhaps they may have. Maybe their parents moved them around, but they do give you a different life, maybe more opportunities. But then it's like you do become something that others then see as other.
Right.
From where you came from, bro.
Yeah. No.
And
This is
that's
interesting.
when
This
you're
is interesting.
like, whoa.
Yes.
Whoa.
And so what happened?
Whoa.
What happened to us was we had this
That's
embarrassment.
heavy, man.
We had
That
this
is heavy,
embarrassment,
yeah.
right? That we weren't speaking properly. We weren't saying it the right way. Whatever it is.
Yeah, bro.
And
Which is like,
you know
what
what
is
our
the right way?
You know what our reaction was, and
It
I
was like, I'm done with y'all.
I
Was it?
truly don't know if this was a conscious decision that, like that I made and then my sister picked up, or that she made and then I picked up, or if we just both started doing it at the same time. We just stopped speaking in Tamil. Completely stopped
Damn.
speaking it. Because we were like, oh, well, we can communicate to our parents
That's
in
when
Japanese.
you kill the creativity, you know what I'm saying? Like, you kill the child's creativity because you tell them, like,
Yeah.
stop playing that instrument.
Yeah.
You know?
And it was like, we could talk to our parents in Japanese. We could talk to our parents in English. So if you can understand everything I'm saying, what's the purpose? And from a deep internal place, every time I speak in this other language, I'm feeling this sense of embarrassment, this sense of shame, judgment,
bro.
that I'm not getting when I speak English, that I'm not getting when I speak Japanese, right? So my sister and I both completely stopped speaking Tamil.
Wow.
We both understand it perfectly fine. We just stopped speaking it. And to your point, it also came with this sense of, okay, here in the US, right? We're going to regular school. But at the end of the day, at a super high level, we don't fully fit in because we're immigrants and we have a different life. Japanese school, we speak the language. We don't fully fit in because we're Indian in a school full of Japanese people.
You're not. Yeah.
Go back home to India. We don't fully fit in because we don't speak the language.
Outsider.
Everywhere.
Complete.
You're an outsider in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting about that is that becomes your character. So actually now the problem that I have is I assimilate too much to every group that I'm a part of. And what I mean is
wow. Okay.
if I'm hanging out with my engineering friends, for example, I take you know that saying where they say like you are the average of the 5 closest people to you.
Yeah, yes.
I take that to an extreme in every group I'm in. If I'm just hanging out with our engineering friends, for example, I take
you're that.
the personalities of all those people and I assimilate to that to feel accepted, right? If I'm hanging out with my MBA friends, well, they're a little different. I do feel like now as I'm becoming more of an adult, like I do have a individualism, like I know who I am.
Right.
But for example's sake, if I'm hanging out with my MBA friends, I now overly assimilate to try to fit in really, really hard with those people. If I'm hanging out with my high school friends, again, same thing, overly assimilate to try to fit in with those people. And it's interesting, right? Because in those formative ages, as a young person, I felt like such a outsider everywhere that I went that now I've like overcorrected to try so hard to fit in everywhere that I go.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing from a sense of like, I think generally speaking, a lot of people like me. A lot of people think that I'm easy to talk to. A lot of people think that I'm, that I fit in well.
Yeah, I see.
But then you have to ask yourself, like, okay, if you're acting differently with each of these groups, who are you really?
Yeah, people talk about like I think the fancy term, the term today is like code switching or whatever that's called. And I think to obviously I want to welcome all. Like if you're not like an immigrant or not what is defined as multicultural, I don't want to like negate the fact that like you could be from one place and only lived in one place and only speak one language, but you still feel that reality of like I have to adjust to all these groups, right? Because like there are levels to it. Our experiences might seem more drastic to some, but at the same time, your experience doesn't seem drastic to me. In a way, like wow, like this is like something that we can
like you can see how it.
Well, no, and like we're in the same group in that sense,
yeah.
right? Even though it's in a different part of the world and different languages and all of that, So I think the beauty then is then you realize as much, and so like the thing is like I don't think we're like saying like we're victims of anything, and like but then all this, I want to say like we're not alone, and it's like not that unique of an experience in the sense of like we can like we're understanding each other right now about that those experiences.
This is like a common experience.
Yeah, and so then what that means is like one, like get over yourself in the sense of like you're not alone, and get excited that the fact that you're actually not alone, meaning sure it might not be the same bulletless points of all that stuff, but at least somebody can like be like, wow, and like and then like we didn't even plan to meet in this life or anything like that. We just happened to meet each other.
We
didn't
even plan this conversation right now.
No, exactly. Like we just said we're gonna sit down.
Yeah, like literally, this isn't even in my notes.
Oh shit.
You know, like this is just we just got here.
We're off
but
the script.
You know what's
I'm dangerous off the script.
You know what is beautiful about this stuff?
Yeah.
Is
I might cry.
Don't cry. As a 27-year-old now, I am relearning the beauty of my culture and stuff.
Yes.
You know? And all credit, shout out, I don't know if I should say this, but all credit and shout out goes to my girlfriend on this one, because she's very, very much into our culture, and I think a lot of that has like rubbed off on me in a good way.
That's a blessing, dude.
And it's got me to, think about more things. It's got me to go back to speaking Tamil, like even though I know my like accent's bad. Yeah. She speaks it very well. And so it's got me to go back to trying to speak it. And here's my
I love this.
My ribbon, my bow to wrap it up.
This is so good.
Right? Back in May, we went to India for my sister's engagement party, right?
Damn.
And there was one day that my sister, she wanted to go to like a Hindu temple of some sort, kind of like a tourist attraction. She wanted to show her fiance, she wanted to show me, and his best man came with us as well. And so we just wanted to go and like do this like tourist attraction thing, right? But my mom and dad had other things that they had to do. And so this presents a problem, because every time we've gone to India, my parents kind of act as our translator, right? But now for the first time in
you're telling me
literally 20 years.
No way, bro.
First time in 20 years. This year. First time in 20 years.
Stuff. I have some stuff to say.
My sister and I, along with her fiance and his best man, are going out into the world in India by ourselves. No translators. We have to do it, right? And so my dad's like talking to the taxi driver, like, telling him, this is what I want you to do. Like, I want you to take them there, take them here. Then afterwards take them for lunch here, and then like bring them back, right? And he's trying to
miss that.
He's trying to explain all of it, and he's trying real hard to like make sure every detail is correct, because he knows that like we're not gonna be able to do it, right? But in that moment, I took the opportunity, dude, and I'm standing there literally next to my dad.
This is my boy.
And I told the guy, the taxi driver, I said, hey. In Tamil, I said, hey, like, my Tamil's not great. I understand everything, but I may be a little slow to respond.
All right.
Is what I said.
You need to say that in Tamil.
Oh,
right
dude.
I'm serious. If
on camera?
Why not?
On camera?
Why not,
okay, this is what I said. I said, எனக்கு Tamil puriyum, but konja slow. Which essentially means I understand Tamil, but I'm a little slow to speak it.
Perfect.
Okay? Dude, this is going up on the internet.
Yeah, I mean...
This is going to be the first time many, many people in America are hearing me say this.
Yeah, and probably in India, if they watch it too, bro, they'll hear you say it as well.
Clip it. But I said that, right, to this taxi driver with my dad sitting next to me. And when I tell you, the look of just pure and absolute joy on his face, right? And he looked at me, gave me a big old hug, and he was like, wow, I feel so much better now.
Thank
like
God,
I feel great.
Good.
He was like, wow, I'm so surprised, but that's great. I feel so much safer, so much better that you guys are going out, And it was, while still it was like hard for me, like even just now, like it's like hard for me to kind of overcome the feeling of embarrassment.
Yeah.
But it was like,
That's when you
it was
gotta
nice,
dive in.
man. It was nice.
That's when you dive in, bro. And
Yeah.
that's what you did.
It was a
like,
good
that's
feeling.
What you did. You
It was a
dived
good
in.
feeling, yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And so I'm
Yes.
slowly getting back there.
Yeah. Wow.
You know?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So like one of the things like for myself was that in the same that same undertaking mission that I had to develop that while I was in my teenage years and doing all of that. Eventually, we had gone back as a family multiple times to Colombia. And then eventually I knew I needed to go back by myself. And I did that for the first time halfway through college. And I knew a friend our age and all that.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, that was great. That was my first time navigating, being in Bogota.
Yeah.
And then being in, I think we actually did a road trip from Bogota to Medellin. And then I forget what other, I think I just stayed in those two areas that time. That was the first time that I also like studied abroad. But then later on, school goes by and all of that. That's when I spent, and I graduate. I spent 5 months in South America.
Yeah.
One, to get reacquainted with Colombian culture, spend more time there, and then also decide upon being Colombian is only one part of being South American.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I still have yet to be to the Caribbean or Central America.
Yeah.
But I went to a bunch of countries, and again, this was with this pursuit of outside of anyone. I need to have that moment, man, where I'm like, I got this.
Yeah.
Even though I don't got this fully. But this is like a mentality, some Hispanics might say, it depends on where you are, but like even with my siblings, you say the acronym is YTS, but it's ya tú sabes. And what that means is it's like you already know. Like you already know what's up. Like this is how we roll. This is how we get after it. And like I even have this like tatted on me, and like so with my siblings as well. And the thing is about it, it's like this idea where there's these moments in life.
Yeah.
Man. And people have it like, I know we're talking about like our languages and our culture, but like, man, there's these moments in life where you got to be like, this is who I am. Well, and this is what I want to do. And then you just.
How are you so comfortable? Because you're very well traveled at this point. Look at my notes here. You've gone to London, Russia, Scotland, Spain, Italy, France, Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru. And oftentimes you go by yourself on these trips, especially around the U.S. and whatnot.
Yeah.
How are you so comfortable doing these things by yourself? Because we were talking about this a little earlier this afternoon. But I get scared a lot, or not even scared, but it's a feeling of, again, like embarrassment, like
totally, bro.
What are people gonna think of me?
Yeah, no, that's definitely
like
there.
Taking yourself to a movie, taking yourself to dinner.
I think there's two approaches. The first approach, which maybe I would call the ego or the self-serving one, where like I'm gonna answer this very concisely, and then I can just to open up the room for this. At first, you want to say, "Oh, I can handle all these things." So first you say whether we've talked about like career or personal accomplishments.
Yeah.
You want to Daniel Enciso can do these things. Mm-hmm. So then you build up a confidence in that. Right? Like I'm serious. Like this is what like you feed it. So like because like this is what a lot of us strive for is validation in this life. That this being that we are can make it in this life.
Right.
And that's what I strive for, bro. That's like why I put myself in situations, because I wanted to be that person, man. That version of myself.
Yeah.
That I can be proud about.
Right.
But then I've slowly realized, man, over time, many people let me stay in their homes. People gave me directions. I couldn't speak the language in some of these places, whether it be Russia,
right,
France, in Brazil. Like, I didn't know Portuguese at the time. And then I started realizing, bro, like, you actually don't do it all. Like, you don't even do it all. And even like back at home. And so then what I realized is that, one, when you identify just by yourself, you get a lot of pride from accomplishing things, and then you get super super embarrassed when you fuck it up. Like
Yeah.
when you embarrass,
Yeah.
like when you like fail. Man, like I wanted to go talk to this group of people to become friends with them, and they just didn't vibe with me. You take that personal.
Yeah.
You take everything personally, your accomplishments personally.
Right. Right. Right.
And so what I'm trying to say with this is that fed me for a while, but then it wasn't enough. And then I realized that, like, how I'm able to do it is that, like, I know that there's a part of it for me, meaning like I'm responsible for my choices, or like I'm able to go up to this group, or be bold enough, ask a girl out, do all this kind of stuff. But then at the same time, there's the other person, or there's
Right.
the other groups, or all these other elements that conspire with me in that moment.
Yeah.
And this is like one of the reasons why, like I mentioned, The Alchemist to you. It's like I do really believe, like, we have, in the book it calls it a personal legend, but we have a reason for being. And I think everything in our life kind of like conspires to tell us that. And so, like, one of the reasons why, like, going abroad, like traveling, putting myself in these solo situations, is because if I don't ask myself, like, what's me,
Yeah.
then I don't find out. Right? Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
No, it does. I'm letting that sit for a second, because I guess the question would be, what if you don't know what you is?
No.
Then you just strive to be the person that you want to be, I guess, right? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
What
So
does that journey of discovery look like?
yeah,
And
that is the
and I
hero's
guess,
journey. That is the hero's journey, classically
right.
speaking, like
And I
the
guess
Greeks and all of that.
like, to your point, to your perspective, like, you are challenging yourself to do all these things, that is your journey.
Yeah, I think something guides us. I
Yeah.
definitely think something guides us, man.
It certainly is interesting. I guess another question I have is, like, going through all those experiences, all these different countries. You've been in Latin American countries a lot, European countries a lot. You've been all over the U.S. at this point. Have each of those experiences, you know, changed your perspective on the world and on who you are
Yeah, man.
now versus, call it 5 years ago?
Yeah, and it reminds me of what persists despite all of those things, in a good way, and not in a bad, like, good or bad. That's like, again, making it into this, what I think people would think is good and bad.
Yeah.
So I would say it's like I see what remains, in the sense of, like, what. This is so funny to say, bro. It's like I'm consciousness manifest incarnate in this body. I know that's like, what the did I just say?
Yeah.
What did I just say? But, like, like Descartes would say, I think, therefore I am.
Yes.
But that's just like such a logical perspective. I feel. Doesn't that also mean that, like, my feelings are validated?
Right.
Like,
Right.
I know that sounds like I'm all over the place, but what I'm trying to say with that is that all of these places, what do they tell me? They tell me I was born in one place. I was a little kid here. I was a teenager there. I was nervous about this. I was excited about this. I won a state championship here. I did all these things, but, like, those things are gone. The things are in the past. The future, we don't know. It's a hypothetical.
Yeah.
It's dreams. It's hope. It's fears. What persists? What really persists? Like, atomically, molecularly speaking, like, dude, all our cells are replaced.
Yep.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I cut myself, the body recovers. But even as I age, like, there's studies on, like, it regenerates. So,
Right.
like, I know that sounds like, well, what's the point, man? Well, the point of what I'm trying to say is, like, I've realized that in those journeys, yes, my synapses pass the memories over, right? If I smell like like a food that I eat
Yeah.
at one point in one of my journeys, and I smell it again in the same area, and it's just like, wow, I remember this.
Yeah.
It's like that whole scene in what is that movie? It's Matt Damon and Robin Williams. He's this
Damon
man.
and
He's
Robin
yeah.
Williams.
He's like
Mrs. Doubtfire.
no. It's not that. It's the
Matt Damon and Robin Williams.
yeah, dude.
Oh,
It's this fucking
damn clue.
He's a smart guy. Um, he's a janitor at this school. Oh man, I'm actually
The Bourne Identity.
no, it's not. That's a great movie. Um, wow, I'm just
All right,
gonna
hey,
get so
leave it
much
in the
flack.
comments if you
No,
guys
yeah,
know.
yeah. Like, but there's this scene because this guy's brilliant. But Robin Williams is a psychiatrist or his like therapist or whatever, and he tells him, "I bet you can tell me all about your books, but you don't know what it like smells like in the Sistine Chapel, right? You don't know what it's like." And Robin Williams' character in this movie, what is this movie called, bro?
Dude, I don't know.
It's called and he says like you don't know what it's like to look at like your lover. His wife died, and he goes on to this whole spiel about like, caring about all these things. I think then what you realize is that what you're something that's experiencing life, man. You see what I'm saying? And so like, what allows me to confidently, not like confidently in me, man, because the guy who was bold enough to go skydive, the skydiving thing is over. So what persists? Part of it's the memory that I did it. But part of it's that same spirit, like that moment that said, I was brave enough to tell my dad, hey, I got this. I'm going to speak in this.
Yeah.
That's that. When I say that spirit, it's that energy. It's that capability that can always step up to the fold, man, and say,
Right.
I'm gonna watch this movie alone. Or I'm going to go invite some people, some strangers at the hostel. Go do this. I'm going to go talk to some new colleagues that I met at this office that I frequent, maybe like once or twice a year. And I'm going to invite them. That energy, bro, like life is now. That's what I'm trying to say is like, and so in all these cases, in all these travels, that's what I've realized. And I've hesitated sometimes, like, man, sometimes I'm nervous to engage a group.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't, like, like people will say like you don't have the guts or you don't have the balls to do it or whatever it is. And sometimes you don't. And then that's when you realize that there's that fearful thing that like wants to preserve itself, right? That like is scared of like, man, but if you do that, I'm not going to be around anymore. Good. See ya.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Good. See ya, because you have your time and your place.
Right.
And so like that for me follows me, bro. Like it follows me in all those choices. Like when I rent out like a motorcycle, when I go see some friends, man, like I'm always ready to leave what no longer serves behind and to embrace the new. I'm not talking about others. Like the thing is like others, you change too, bro. If I can't embrace the you now and I just hold on to this idea of you, I'm not like actually with you. Like I'm thinking that's like the Jerome from like a day ago.
Right.
And I know that sounds crazy because it's not like you changed that much, but you did change.
And now what happens when you change so much that two people are no longer compatible?
Oh shit. Well, that happens with like some of the good friend groups, like, and it's just like, man, you used to like study together, or you did that stuff, or whether you've had a relationship, or people that you worked with, colleagues, like you thought you were gonna stay connected, then things go. You've ever seen the movie of Life of Pi?
I have not. I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
But I haven't actually watched the movie.
But do you understand like the whole theme? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically he like survives, and there's this tiger, that companion.
Right.
And then there's a beautiful scene at the end of it where he talks about like the whole of life is an act of letting go. But what hurts or what's tough is not saying goodbye. And in the English language, goodbye means like God be with you. And I'm not like trying to make a point other than like you do say farewell. Like I hope the best for you.
Right.
Whatever brings us both the strife and the goodness of life, I hope that accompanies you in your. I don't get to always do that with everybody because sometimes the breakups, the colleagues is just like, he went to another company.
Right.
Or he doesn't want to join us here, or a relationship goes by. And I think I think when things don't work out, the part of us, and it's not the part of us, the part that tries to hold on to things, which is good. It's necessary to hold on to things sometimes. Like you need to hold on to some people an experience because it's good. But eventually, like life, and in this book, The Alchemist tells us, if you do not let go for now, because the now is the only thing that matters,
Right.
then you cannot complete that personal legend. And then these moments, like whether it is, man, I'm trying to include your things, but like whatever moments bring you like that insight of like, this is why I'm alive.
Yeah.
To get somebody to smile at me,
Yeah.
to get somebody to be excited, then they won't come to you because you stopped being an instrument for those moments. Like if you stop being like somebody willing to step up, you know what I'm saying? Then life will be like, okay, this is someone who no longer steps up in this moment in time. And this will just be the case for now.
Yeah.
You know, because like maybe you need that time to see like, man, you're no longer stepping up, and you can't like be that excitement or that tension in people's life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like I really like life is now. Like that's what carries me in those moments, man. I feel like that resonates because like that's like why you've embraced your MBA, bro. Like why you've embraced
100%.
This moment with like with your dad, you know?
Yeah, 100%. No, I think that's super important. I don't know, man. I think it ultimately completely goes back to what we were talking about a couple weeks ago of be confident in every decision that you're making and don't look back. Do fully commit
Yeah.
and tools clear history.
Tools clear history, bro. It is insane how that applies, and it's healthy. But know that like we're all in it together, dude. That's one of the hardest things that like dude. Once I realized that we just all want peace,
Yeah.
and it's just like
Yeah.
and I think the Jewish people say shalom, and I think it says peace be with you, or peace be upon you.
Right.
I think the Muslims also say peace be upon you. Assalamu
alaikum.
Yeah,
I don't actually know what the translation means.
Like, but I think there's something like when they greet each other, and it's like and so it's just like, what does peace mean? Peace isn't just like happiness or unhappiness, because you can be happy and unhappy and still like either be peaceful or unpeaceful.
Right.
In a state of peace or be with peace.
I completely agree, because when you're unhappy with something,
like the death of something, a job's gone, shit. Like
you're not gonna be at peace with that.
You know what I'm saying?
Initially.
You can be at peace with that. You could still be unhappy.
Yes, and still be at peace.
Yeah, it's like
Right, I completely agree. You can be vice versa. You can be unhappy with something and not at peace with something. But what is that doing for you? You know, holding that in, being unhappy and unpeaceful with that, not accepting that as the reality. What is that doing for you?
Well, I think it prevents you from being like young at heart. You know what I'm saying? Like that song goes. But it really is like, I think so this is one of the things I've seen people with memory loss. But the way that they age, like let's say they're fully functioning, but they just can't retain memory because they no longer get stressed with holding on, which is what the mind does. They actually age wonderfully. You know, they don't develop any diseases. They still age and they pass away. But that holding on, bro, it's like, and it's not like you could still recognize things. You know, you could still, by holding on, it's like it's nothing external, really.
Yeah.
It's what's within you.
Right.
You know, like how do you view the things? And so like, yeah, man, I think, you know, as we've had very unique opportunities to hang out, right? Like to spend time, and I've noticed how a common theme has always come about of like how we've both kind of showed each other how we've adapted.
Yeah.
Adapted to so many levels of career, of personal stuff, man. It is insane though. Like
we're very different from when we first met.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And we've adapted to, you know, what life has thrown at us.
Yeah.
And we've proven to be successful in whatever we're doing. But still, you know, ultimately, like the core is still the same, right? But maybe,
Yeah, whatever that core is, which is
Yeah.
fascinating, man.
right. And maybe that's what, makes our friendship so strong or whatever. Maybe it's that core foundation that makes it strong.
Yeah, man.
Because then all these extremities that we're talking about, those can change, and like the fundamental person who you are is still the same. You know what I mean? But maybe just the perspective is different.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This has been a fascinating conversation.
Yes, sir. Any final notes, bro?
Ooh, final notes.
Yeah, or like final.
I mean,
topics?
truthfully, this has been literally we're
We ran
around
through it all.
an hour again.
Sheesh.
No, this has been one of my favorite conversations that I've had on the podcast so far. I feel like that hour flew by.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, yeah, the very good conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation as well. And if you guys enjoyed it, make sure to smash that like button, because we can get Daniel back on the pod whenever we want.
Yeah, I can show up, share
Yeah.
some more details. I guess more specifics. I guess it depends on the feedback.
Yeah. If people enjoy this philosophical conversation,
Yeah.
where we're just talking about life, and because ultimately, like, to put a bow on kind of all of this and summarize all of this, I think the ideas that we're talking about, the topics that we're talking about, I think are, maybe people haven't thought of the exact things that we're talking about, right? But
Yeah.
this concept of things that are higher than us, how am I supposed to be in life? How am I supposed to find acceptance and peace, like we're talking about, in my life as a young adult, as someone that has graduated college and is for the first time alone in their life trying to just figure it out. I think it's all things that are relatable to everyone that is going through this at that
For sure.
age.
Yeah. Like yes, absolutely.
And I think oftentimes people assume that they're going through this stuff alone.
And you're just not, man. And there's so many mechanisms. They talk about, like, psychologists will go Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you find a space for your spiritual development, I know you introduced me as like a
Spiritual leader, a couple weeks ago.
And I think, and that's all things I could definitely dive into, because I've definitely been humbled by my life experience. But again, all this theory and all of that, like, I also, like, I've rented a motorcycle while I've been out here. I've done very extreme things, whether it's to travel, whether it's exposing myself to new languages. And I think what it's like we're taking the time to talk about it now, but if you don't then take action upon these feelings and these emotions, you're going to sell yourself short. And so the main thing is, it's like, take time within yourself, then talk to trusted advisors or confidants, and then you got to go. And then you gotta go, and nobody's gonna walk that road. Like, that's the thing. It's like getting those college opportunities, taking that trip, talk to a girl, like, whatever it is. Like, I know, like, nobody has skin in the game, bro.
Yeah.
Like, nobody has Jerome's skin except Jerome,
right,
bro.
except for you.
And like, and that's when you just run it, man. You run it up, and then that's it, bro.
Be confident in it.
And then that's the story, man. And then you live it, and then you tell it.
Exactly. Well, Daniel, you got anything to plug? Where can the people find you on socials?
Yeah, so I guess professionally, I'm on LinkedIn. I probably need to update it because I've been, I guess, making progress in the career. And I think, I forget the extension, but, like, you'll look up Daniel Enciso. My full name is Daniel Felipe Enciso Gonzalez. You'll find me there. You'll find out that I'm employed and all of that. Socials, Instagram is probably, I've public profile. I post travels and thoughts on life.
Kind of like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Kinda like this.
And links to things that I find fascinating. That is Dan_Enciso. And yeah, and if you see me out there, just say what's up. Like, I'm pretty chill, because I've learned to be chill, and so please please say hey, and maybe we can take some time to chat. So thank you, bro.
Thank you guys for watching this episode of the Rome's Room podcast. As always, you can catch this podcast on Apple, Spotify, Castbox, and right here on youtube.com/Jerome Vaz. I'm your host, Jerome. This has been my room. Daniel, thank you for joining us yet again.
Thank you.
We'll catch you guys next time.